So I have 10 lithium iron phosphate batteries. They're 12.8 volt, 100 amp hour batteries that I am going to install in my RV. One of the things you have to think about when you're doing that is what kind of converter you have in your RV. So I looked at the converter in our RV and I found out that even though this is a 2022 and this is a late 2022, almost 2023, they still put just a basic converter in here. It's a 60 amp, I think, or 65 amp. And it's not a cheap converter, but it doesn't do anything but AGM and your standard wet lead acid batteries. So it won't do everything needed for lithium batteries, for lithium iron phosphate batteries. So one of the things you need from your converter is you need to turn shore power, either 120 volt or 240 volt AC power, into DC power to run the DC things in your RV. If you look at your breaker box, you probably have a breaker for your converter. So we have one down here and it's a 15 amp breaker. So for the converter, it allows it to pull 15 amps of power and use that just for the converter. So since this RV did not come with a converter that supports lithium iron phosphate or any kind of lithium battery, I had to go buy a new converter. So I'm going to be taking out the converter that came with this RV and putting in one that not only can do lead acid and AGM, but it can also do lithium and lithium iron phosphate, pretty much any battery on the market now, since you could actually set the voltage. It's just one of the things that you need to think about if you're going to be putting a battery bank in your RV. Of course, right now, lithium iron phosphate is the battery of choice. It's the battery that everyone's putting into their RV so you can get the most from it for the best price. And they're getting cheaper. It's just the most economical battery you can get right now. The converter is actually behind this control panel, but that is also our storage compartment. So the converter is actually pretty far back there. I got to go take the wall of the storage compartment out to get to the converter, and I'm going to switch that out with the new one that I purchased. The new one is also a higher ampage. Now, if you go too high, you're going to have to probably switch the breaker. If you have what I have, like I have a 15 amp breaker here, 15 amps times 110, let's say, it's still over 1500 watts. So I don't have to switch out the breaker. I may have to put bigger electrical lines in. I'm going to see when I get in there, but at least this converter will power everything I need. It will charge my batteries properly, and it's going to have about 20-25 more amps to run extra things or charge the batteries quicker if we need it. So on my RV, this is the AC panel here for breakers, and then back behind this panel here is all my 12 volt fuses and so forth. All of that though here is accessible on the other side through the storage compartment. So this is the converter I bought. I'll put a link to this down in the description of the video. The best place I found price-wise for this was Amazon, and that's where I ordered it. Another good thing is it has a 3-year warranty. From what I remember looking at, the one that comes in the RV has a 1-year warranty, which is basically the warranty of the RV, which this RV is now 1 month out of warranty for the 1st-year warranty. So I'm going to keep my other converter, and you can actually keep it around and use it for like a battery charger, but I'm just not going to be using it with lithium iron phosphate batteries. And like I said, I'm putting 10 of them in here, so I don't want to mess those up. So now I'm down here in one of my storage compartments. This is the one that is basically the access point to all the electrical breakers and everything that are here. I've already pulled this little panel off, which is gets me to the Lippert controls and so forth, but I need to pull this whole board off all the way over to that one, which means I got to pull that board off. Then I've got full access to the converter. At that point, it should be pretty much plug and play. I should be able to just undo the wires from that, put them into this one, and then plug it in. Now I do have all the electricity turned off. You want to make sure you don't have shore power or your battery connected. You just don't want to short out anything or mess anything up. So all of my electricity is turned off. Even the solar panels on the roof are disconnected at the solar charger. So I should be clear and good to go. I'm going to get to it. So this is the board pulled off. If you've ever wondered what's behind them, just a few screws that hold them on. But if you look here underneath these furnace lines, there is our converter mounted under here. So it's got the ground over here hooked up to it, and then there's a power wire. It's a 110 plug that actually plugs in to the breaker box over there. And then on the other side of the converter is a bunch of the wiring where, you know, it goes into all the different 12-volt appliances and lights and everything else that's in here. So that is what I got to take out and replace with the RecPro one that I bought that's in the box. So I'm going to wiggle around in here and get this thing taken out. All right, so this is the inverter that my RV has in it. And it's not an old inverter, it's a relatively new inverter, but it does not handle lithium iron phosphate. I looked this up on their website. It's a totally different version that you have to buy from them to be able to handle lithium. This is only meant for lead acid, you know, wet batteries and AGM batteries. So anything else it says it doesn't work with. So that's why I'm pulling this out. If you've never pulled apart an RV before, just make sure you bring a vacuum with you. I brought one in here with me because I knew how bad it was going to be, because I've already found an empty chip bag, gum wrappers. The worst thing though that I have found opening up this RV is there was a power wire with a wood screw, just like this, ran right through it. It was a double wire, so it has positive and negative in it, and this was ran right in the middle. And when I unscrewed this, it was sparking. Now this wasn't this time, this was another time. But you're going to find all kinds of stuff like that because quality control on RVs is, I'm pretty sure, non-existent. So just bring a vacuum with you and suck up as much as you can. It helps, you know, reduce any fire hazard and, you know, I guess kind of lightens your RV up a little bit. But I don't know, I'm tidy. I like to keep things clean. So I'm trying to clean all this up. And the wiring is just everywhere. So they're slapping this stuff together. So I'm also organizing some of the wires, putting zip ties on them, getting things out of the way. There are definitely a lot of places where wires going down the road for many, many miles could, you know, wear the insulation off of them and cause all kinds of problems. Now, the furnace is right there. It does have those removable caps on the ends. So I was able to take those off and move that out of the way to give me a little better access to, you know, where the converter was installed. And now I'm going to get the other one installed. I also am changing out this, I think it was 6-gauge wire that they had hooked up to the converter right here, and I'm going to be putting 1-aught in it. So it's going to be a much thicker battery wire. Of course, I'm keeping all the fuses and breakers and everything else that they had in here. I'm just going to be switching the wiring out and probably adding more breakers and fuses. All right, so I've got the converter here now mounted up, put some screws in it, and I got to put a couple more in it. And now I'm going to run the wiring here. I've got the plug already plugged into the control panel that's inside of the RV. So this will be powered up as soon as shore power turns on. And then this is where you put the positive and negative and run it to your bus bar where your batteries and everything else are, you know, hooked up. So this will be the 12-volt port. And then I'm going to have 1-off wire coming up onto the board back here and then running to a bus bar where everything else can feed off of that. All right, so I've got the wiring hooked up in this. So now I'm going to start, you know, pulling this aside, getting everything laid out again so I can put the wall in, and then I can put my bus bars and everything on. Then we can fire this thing up and see how well it did. So I do have the new converter installed, and I've got the converter breaker on, as you can see down there. That 15 at the bottom is the converter breaker. And I did hook it up to the batteries, and it is charging the batteries fine. I unhooked the batteries so that way I could come in and make sure everything in the RV operated the way it needs to off of 12 volt. And everything lights up well. The lights come on. I can even move the slides in and out. So yeah, I mean, this converter seems to be doing great. So it's one of the things I needed to get done to get this thing ready to start moving towards solar. And I like the fact that, again, it's 85 amps instead of the 60 that was in here before. So I have just that much more ampage that can charge the batteries. If for some reason the solar isn't doing what it needs to do, I can throw the generator on, and instead of charging at 60 amps with a, you know, AGM or lead only converter, I'm now going to be charging with a converter that can charge up to 85 amps, and it can handle all the different battery types by just going in and adjusting it. Very happy with it so far. Only time will tell, of course, but everything's working right. And I hope this information was helpful. Thank you very much for watching. Y'all take care.